Remember, too, that this was a politically charged situation. If the dream had meant bad news for the king, the seer could lose his head even if he told the truth. Fortunately for Daniel, though, the king could feel good about this one. Notice how deftly Daniel stroked the king's ego while ascribing none of Yahweh's glory to him.
This is the dream. Now we will tell you the interpretation of it before the king. You, O king, are a king of kings. For the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field and the birds of heaven, he has given them into your hand, and has made you a ruler over all of them. You are this head of gold. But after you shall arise another kingdom inferior to yours, then another, a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the land. Daniel 2:36-39.
Good news, bad news, Nebuchadnezzar. Yes, you're the top guy now, but your kingdom won't last forever. It will be followed by a string of others that will be progressively inferior to yours. Go figure. We needn't be thrown off by the phrase, rule over all the earth, something that none of the kingdoms yet being referred to literally achieved, something that no earthly kingdom has ever achieved yet. The word for earth is the Chaldean ara, the equivalent to the Hebrew eretz, which can mean country, earth, field, ground, land, wilderness, or world. It doesn't necessarily mean this planet. Daniel didn't know who some of these nations would be yet. In subsequent visions, he would be given detailed information about most of them, but for now he just saw trends, symbolized by a succession of metals, each less valuable but greater in strength than the one that preceded it. The first kingdom, the head of gold, was defined as Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon. In a later vision, Daniel describes it like this.
I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven were stirring up a great sea. And four great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I watched till its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and a man's heart was given to it. Daniel 7:2-4.
Whereas the land is often a symbol of Israel, the sea is a common biblical metaphor for the Gentile world. The word for wind, the Chaldean word ruach, can mean mind, spirit, or wind. The implication can be drawn that these winds of heaven are metaphorical of spirits. In other words, spirits have stirred up these beasts, these Gentile nations. Babylon, the first beast, was strong like a lion and swift like an eagle. But its wings were clipped, and it had a change of heart when its greatest king was humbled by God and incapacitated by a 7-year period of insanity. The story is recounted in the 4th chapter of Daniel. Holding Nebuchadnezzar's vacant throne open during this time of madness stands as one of the great political achievements of human history. This must have been the head of gold. The second kingdom, represented by the statue's chest and arms of silver, was that of the Medes and Persians, who conquered Babylon in Daniel's lifetime. It, too, was described in a later vision.
And suddenly another beast, a second, like a bear. It was raised up on one side, and had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And they said thus to it, Arise, devour much flesh. Daniel 7:5.
Later still, a third vision revealed more about the second kingdom.
Then I lifted my eyes and saw, and there, standing beside the river, was a ram which had 2 horns. And the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher one came up last. I saw the ram pushing westward, northward and southward, so that no animal could withstand him, nor was there any that could deliver from his hand. But he did according to his will, and he became great. Daniel 8:3-4.
The Persians gained ascendancy over their allies the Medes. Hence they were the side that was raised up, and the second horn, which grew higher. The 3 ribs in the bear's mouth probably refer to their most significant conquests: Lydia in 546 BC, Babylonia in 539, and Egypt in 525 BC. The third kingdom, seen in Nebuchadnezzar's dream as the statue's belly and thighs of bronze, would prove to be Greece under Alexander of Macedon.
After this I looked, and there was another, like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Daniel 7:6.
Dealing with the symbols, we observe that leopards are swift and deadly hunters. This one was made even more so by virtue of his 4 wings and 4 heads, a reference to Alexander's 4 top generals: Lysimachus, Cassander, Ptolemy, and Seleucus. These men are also referred to in Daniel's later vision.
And as I was considering, suddenly a male goat came from the west, across the surface of the whole land, without touching the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. Then he came to the ram that had 2 horns,
Media and Persia,
which I had seen standing beside the river,
Ulai,
and ran at him with furious power. And I saw him confronting the ram. He was moved with rage against him, attacking the ram, and broke his 2 horns. There was no power in the ram to withstand him, but he cast him down to the ground and trampled him. And there was no one that could deliver the ram from his hand. Therefore the male goat grew very great. But when he became strong, the large horn was broken, and in place of it 4 notable ones came up toward the 4 winds of heaven. Daniel 8:5-8.
All these horns symbolize power. The floating goat with the horn of note, seen trampling Media Persia, is obviously Greeks. The large horn is Alexander, whose conquest was indeed sudden. And the 4 replacement horns are again his 4 generals, who split up the conquered lands between them after Alexander's death. Before you get all impressed with my brilliant scholarship, I've got a confession to make. Late in Daniel's life, Gabriel and another angel specifically told him who the second and third kingdoms were going to be. Media Persia, the second kingdom, and Greece, the third, were peoples Daniel would have been quite familiar with, considering his office as a Chaldean wise man. But the prophecy came in the 3rd year of Belshazzar's reign, that is, in 551 BC, fully 12 years before the fall of Babylon, when the very idea would have sounded preposterous.
Now, as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep, with my face to the ground. But he touched me, and stood me upright. And he said, Look, I am making known to you what will happen in the later time of the indignation. For at the appointed time the end shall be. The ram which you saw having 2 horns, they are the kings of Media Persia. And the male goat is the kingdom of Greece. The large horn that is between its eyes is the first king. As for the broken horn, and the 4 that stood in its place, 4 kingdoms shall arise out of that nation, but not with its power. Daniel 8:18-22.
15 years later, that is 536 BC, 3 years after the Persians had taken over, Daniel was given more information.
Behold, 3 more kings,
After the current king, Cyrus,
will arise in Persia.
This would be Cambyses Pseudo-Samardus and Darius I Hystapes, a.k.a. Darius the Great.
And the fourth,
Xerxes,
shall be far richer than them all. By his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up against the realm of Greece. Then a mighty king,
Alexander the Great,
shall arise, who shall rule with great dominion, and do according to his will. And when he has arisen, his kingdom shall be broken up and divided toward the four winds of heaven, but not among his posterity, nor according to his dominion with which he ruled. For his kingdom shall be uprooted, even for others beside these. Daniel 11:2-4.
Alexander died at the tender age of 33 after carving out the largest empire the world had yet known. His only son, Alexander Aetius, born after his death to his Bactrian princess Roxana, would not live long enough to follow in his father's footsteps. The empire, rather, was literally divided toward the four winds when Alexander's four generals split up the spoils among them. Now, by now, you're probably muttering something like, "Gee, that's just swell, but what on earth does it have to do with the future? I thought this was supposed to be a book about eschatology." In my experience, it's hard to figure out where you're going if you don't know where you are. The four great Gentile kingdoms described in Daniel, of which we have reviewed 3, are the matrix of human history leading us inexorably toward the kingdom of Yahshua. They are, if you will, the road upon which the salvation of mankind has been revealed, like Burma shave signs along the way. You could ask your grandfather about those. So before moving on to the fourth kingdom, let's take a moment to check our bearings. We began with Babylon, or more properly, Neo-Babylon, the head of gold. It's ironic that the kingdom God used as his hammer of judgment upon apostate Israel was heir to the very originator of organized false worship, Nimrod's ancient seat of power. On the other hand, Israel had been warned that if they would not observe God's law,
Yahweh will scatter you among all people, from one end of the earth to the other, and there you shall serve other gods, which neither you nor your fathers have known, wood and stone. Deuteronomy 28:64.
In other words, if you won't honor the true God in the land of promise, then you can go and serve false gods somewhere else. Yahweh held Babylon responsible for her own sins as well. The Medes and the Persians were raised up to deliver God's vengeance upon Babylon, and did so handily in October 539 BC. In the first chapter I mentioned the book of Esther among a mere handful of writings in the Bible that did not refer to the last days. Though it doesn't directly, the story of Israel is pivotal in God's plan of redemption through the Jewish Messiah. Yahweh's promise to preserve the Jews, and through them the Messianic line, came to a crisis during the reign of the Persian king Ahasuerus, also known as Xerxes. His hasty and ill-conceived edict to execute every Jew in his realm, which was at the time virtually every Jew on earth, was thwarted by the courage of his beautiful Israelite Queen Esther, who interceded for her people. Ironically, it was this same Xerxes who had been prophesied by Daniel to stir up all the realm of Greece. It took 130 more years, but the military pressure he and his successors brought to bear on this loosely affiliated collection of independent city-states eventually created a political climate in which a strong central ruler could arise. That man, as we have seen, was Alexander, who in 13 short years united Greece, crushed Persia, and spread Hellenism from Egypt to India.